Alright, so in this video, we're going to talk about the Invoker for solo pushing high grade rifts. Now, this build was remade for Season 26, allowing it to also get area effect damage. So it is now a way better build than what it used to be in terms of pushing high grade rifts. So in this video, I'm going to go over everything that you need in order to push high grade rifts. So we're going to cover the playstyle, the gear, basically how everything works. So to start off with, the build is an elite hunter. You need to find elites, but you also need to find trash mobs you can then kill alongside with the elite. Because that is the way you reset your cooldowns, so they do more damage and you have more toughness while you have reduced cooldowns. So all our damage comes from our primary skill, and that is in this case a seal. So you can see on my left click here, it has 10 stacks. So all my damage is from that spell alone. Everything else is just there to buff its damage or my own toughness. So we're going to start from left to right in terms of our spell bar. The first skill you see on my Q is Iron Skin. This makes it so you absorb incoming damage and also gives you 300% increased Thorns while dash is running. So this is a toughness and damage increase skill. And we need to make sure, especially that it's running on our physical series rotation, as that is where we do our most damage. Now you can also use it outside of this physical rotation if you see that it is up cooldown wise. So you can usually squeeze out one more cast of that spell while in between cooldowns in terms of your physical rotation. The next spell is Loss of Valor. And when we press this, we get a 50% reduced resource cost reduction, and that of course ties into our Captain Crimson's, so we gain a big damage reduction buff as well. So we also want to make sure that we keep this buff going all the time when you're in a big pool like this, so we have a big damage reduction from that spell. The next spell of course is our pony, and we have it here so we can drag elites and monsters with us to try and find new packs with it. So use this horse to either get from one point to another, or try and use it to drag elites from one point to another. And then the spell on my R is of course our accurate champion. Gives us a big damage and toughness increase while it is running. And basically, we want this to be running all the time if possible. And of course, as I mentioned before, we had the seal on our left click. This is our main damage spell. We want to spam this all the time to deal damage. And besides that, we have our bombardment. We only need to cast this every 20 seconds in order to get our damage reduction from our force set. And you can see the buff is on our buff bar. If you see the one with the icon of the bombardment, that is how long the buff is running. So you want to make sure you have that buff running all the time for a toughness increase. So basically, as I mentioned before, this is an elite hunter. All we're doing is trying to find elites, and then we want to try and find enough trash monsters around it so we can then proc our cooldown reduction from our shield that I'll show you in just a second. So it's very important that we find elites and then also a big pack of monsters, and then we simply just want to spam our cooldowns, make sure everything is running, and then we're just holding down our seal for massive damage. One of the nice things about this build is the ability to kill Rift Guardian. You can just completely destroy Rift Guardians as long as they are single target. It has a lot of damage, and of course the ability to stack Stricken is immense. So as long as you can get a single target boss, you will completely destroy it within just a few minutes with no pylons whatsoever. Now let's look at the gear and how everything works, shall we? So we're using the Invoker set, and our 2-piece makes it so your Thorns now damage all enemies hit in a 15-yard radius. This used to not be like this. This used to only hit the first target. Now this build actually has AoE, which is really nice. And it also says each time you hit an enemy with your punish, slash, or block an attack, your Thorns increase by 90% for 2 seconds, and this effect stacks up to 10 times. So if you look at my buff bar right now, you can see there's an icon and it says 10 stacks. That is the buff you're after. So we want to make sure that we always have 10 stacks of this when we're trying to do damage, especially in our physical rotation of our COE. And our force set, you take 50% less damage for 20 seconds after damaging an enemy with bombardment, as I mentioned before. And then the 6th piece, the attack speed of punish and slash are increased by 100%, and it deals 67,000% of your Thorns damage. So a big damage increase. So before we go over the gear, I'm going to show you 3 really important stats. There are a few things to know before you even look at the gear. The first thing is this is a Thorns build. We want to get Thorns on everywhere. This means that every item that can roll Thorns as a secondary, we want it. So as you can see on the shoulders here, we have Thorns. On the gloves, we have Thorns. So anywhere we have a secondary that can roll Thorns, we want that. The other thing to know is that Thorns cannot crit. Therefore, there is no point in having something like crit chance on any of the gear, as that would just be a wasted stat. So as you can see, the 10% crit chance we have here is just from our Paragon. And then we also run a high cooldown reduction. You need a high cooldown reduction for this build to work. Try and get at least 65%, but if you can't get it everywhere, you want that. Basically, if you can get 69 or even higher than this, that would be ideal. Basically, anywhere you can get a cooldown reduction, get it. And of course, also attack speed lets you hit faster and therefore you deal more damage, so attack speed is also really nice. So this build will be fairly difficult to gear, as you need things without crit chance, you need high cooldown reduction, high attack speed, and Thorns on as many items as you can. So let's look at the gear, shall we? So for the weapon here, Pick Sticker, as you can see, I have rolled on here without the damage roll at all. So in priority wise, you want cooldown reduction, you want attack speed, you want life per hit. Now you don't necessarily have to roll it like this without a damage roll, but if you can, that would be amazing. And of course, you want to socket it with a Thorns gem. For the wings compass rolls, you want attack speed, cooldown reduction, and resource cost reduction. For the gloves, attack speed, cooldown reduction, and resource cost reduction. For the shoulders, cooldown reduction, resource cost reduction, strength, and vitality. For the helmet, strength, vitality, and all rest. For the chest, Aquilus here, strength, vitality, all resistance. For the belt, strength, vitality, all resistance, and armor. For the pants, strength, vitality, all resistance. For the boots, strength, vitality, all resistance, and armor. For the amulet, traveler's pledge, get physical damage, cooldown reduction, and strength. And for the braces, get physical damage, life per hit, strength, and vitality. For your other ring of grandeur, get attack speed, cooldown reduction, and life per hit. And of course, then on your shield, very important this item, guys. You need to make sure you get a high secondary, because every successful block has a 25% chance to reduce all cooldowns by 1 second. As you can see, this roll between 20 and 25, you need to get at least 24 or 25, a bare minimum for this to work, guys. This is how you get all your cooldown reduction. So basically, you're blocking, you can see we have a 51% chance to block, and then when we block, we reduce the cooldowns of our spells. And that is also why it is so important to make big pulls with a lot of monsters. Otherwise, you will not get enough cooldown reduction to have all your spells going at all time. So make sure you get a high percent here on your shield, have a high block chance overall. Otherwise, you will not get enough block chance and you won't reduce your cooldowns by enough, and therefore the build will not work. And besides that, you want cooldown reduction, you want chance to block, and always roll with 11 here. And you want strength and vitality. And of course, as I mentioned before, you basically want Thorns on everywhere you can get it, so every piece basically can get Thorns. So try and get Thorns on as many items as possible. So Thorns plus cooldown reduction plus attack speed and block chance equals winning. And of course, for legendary gems, we are using the chip here for increased Thorns. Try and level this as high as you can. You get a lot of Thorns per level. Bane the Stricken so we can stack this on the Rift Guardian. And we kill Rift Guardian so quickly with this build because we're attacking it so fast, guys. So you stack a ton of Stricken and then kill Rift Guardian really quickly. And of course, Bane the Trapped here for massive damage increase. For the cube, Echoing Fury gain 25% attack speed and movement speed when we're killing enemies. So again, attack speed is really nice for the build, so that's a really good item. The Omni Slash belt, so our slash attacks in all directions. Basically, if you didn't have this, you would only attack in one direction like this. But with the Omni Slash, you're able to attack in every direction, and therefore we deal a lot more damage. So it's a very good item. And of course, our Convince of Elements for massive damage increase on our physical rotation. Try and make sure you have every buff going before your physical rotation, so you can just stand there and deal as much damage as possible. And of course, make sure you use your Iron Skin, Reflective Skin just before, so we have 300% Thorns for those 4 seconds. In terms of the spells, we have Slash Seal here for attack speed. There's all your damage. Make sure you're spamming this as much as you can. Bombardment with Bells or Spikes. Just make sure you have this going at all times with the buff you saw down here before, so you get the damage reduction from the 4 set. Iron Skin, Reflective Skin. Make sure you line this up perfectly with your physical rotation. You can also do it one time between these rotations, so you also get the 50% absorb damage. Loss of Valor here with Unstoppable Force for increased attack speed, and also of course the 50% resource cost reduction. And you can see currently my Wrath cost reduction is 44, and my clear I get up to 72, and that ties directly into Captain Crimson's, so over 30% damage reduction right there. So make sure you have that damage reduction buff going at all times. And Steed Charge Drawn Quarter, use this to get around the map, and of course also use this to bind the enemies and drag them with you with the chain. So you can then make bigger pulls so you have enough monsters so you get enough block, and therefore reset your cooldown enough with your shield. An accurate champion with profit, massive damage and toughness increase, and have this going at all times. In terms of the passive, a Fervor here for increased attack speed and cooldown reduction. Fantasy for more attack speed. Almain for more Thorns. And then Hold Your Ground so we can no longer dodge, but we get 30% block chance, again tying into the shield, so we get more cooldown reduction. And then in terms of the follower, have the relic so follower cannot die. Have a Flavor of Time and a Nemesis Braces for more increased pilot effect. And of course also the spawn elites with the Nemesis Braces. And also an Oculus Ring with a high percent secondary, so you can go and stand in damage rings. And then make sure down here you are choosing cooldown reduction here on line 2. And then the level 30 skill, you can either choose the another cheat death proc, or you can go with attack speed. I'll probably recommend the attack speed once you get familiar with the build and you know how to play it. But at the start, you should probably play it with the cheat death, because you might die a little bit at the start, because it can be kind of difficult in terms of keeping up all your toughness. If you found this guide useful, also make sure to check out my season 26 playlist here, as that playlist will contain all the best guides for season 26, and I'll see you over there. Peace out, everyone.